Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, which was named by Poets and Writers a best book for writers. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Hi, I'm Estelle Erasmus, writer, NYU professor, and host of Freelance Writing Direct. I'm so excited to share that I recently gave a TEDx talk called How to Get Noticed in Your Writing and Beyond, where I share the hard-won lessons I've taught at NYU and learned as editor-in-chief of multiple national magazines about how to make your message stand out no matter the medium. But I also get personal in my talk. I open with a funny story from my past involving Thomas the Tank Engine, one that proves it's not about saying more, but about saying what matters. And I reveal a vulnerable chapter of my life that taught me just how powerful it is to be truly heard. You can watch it on YouTube. There's a link in the show notes. And you can also look up Estelle Erasmus on YouTube. If it resonates, I'd love for you to leave a comment on the TED site. It means so much to me to hear the messages that stick with you from my talk. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus. I want to introduce Imig. Anne is an award-winning founder and speaker with numerous national media and stage appearances. An MSW and certified coach, Anne helps burned-out moms regain their mojo, crush their goals, and fuel their joy at home and work. In 2010, she created the storytelling series and then book titled Listen to Your Mother. Almost 15 years later, Listen to Your Mother continues Giving Motherhood a Microphone on stages across North America, 70 cities and counting. Schedule a free breakthrough session with Anne at listenlifecoaching.com. Welcome, Anne.
Hi, Estelle. I'm so happy to be here and be with you fresh off your TED Talk and your amazing book. And I've been listening to episodes with our mutual friends, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That means the world to me. And thank you so much for mentioning my TEDx talk. I love doing that. So let's get into all about Anne. I mean, you are the mother. Listen to Your Mother, which was just such a groundbreaking concept. It became a movement, especially for people who had been professionals and then became mothers and were like, what am I doing with my life now? I mean, like me, it really was such a pivotal moment in my life because before I did Listen to Your Mother, I felt like the most dinosaur-y of dinosaurs.
Oh.
You know, a has-been, somebody who had had my publishing heyday. And I know you and I have discussed this. I didn't even mention it to anybody when I auditioned that I used to be a magazine editor-in-chief. I thought, oh, who cares? It was so long ago. Nobody would care. This was 2000, I think 11 when I did the show. I had my daughter in 2009, and I'd been a magazine editor-in-chief in the mid to late 90s and up into the mid-aughts. So I just felt It was so long ago. So I just said I was a communications professional, but I still got in. So yay.
Well, I'm just so struck. Imagine 2011 Estelle looking at 2025 Estelle with this huge platform and book and podcast and TEDx talk, like so clearly in your purpose. It's so amazing. Estelle, I don't know if you realize this, but I got to see you read in that Listen to Your Mother show, and I had brought my mom. I think it was 2012, and I remember you standing in that light. You were completely embodying your story about your daughter and seeing her twirling in the library. And when she was so embodied, and it was so moving.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. That's just bringing tears to my eyes to even feel that and hear that because, I know you have become a life coach. And to me, it's just such a natural progression because look how many women you helped. Women who felt ignored, who felt overlooked, who felt, the trauma of giving birth, however you give birth, and
Right.
then dealing with the early days of motherhood, which, everybody's like, oh, it'll just come to you. No, no, it doesn't just come to you. You have to learn it. I studied it as if I was preparing to write an article, like, all the things I had to do for my daughter. Plus, I was a midlife mom. I gave birth in my 40s. And I know a lot of women these days are doing that, but back then it was a little bit of an anomaly. And so let's jump into how did you come up with this brainchild? And then we'll connect all the dots.
The word listen has been a guiding light. And really, if you boil down who I am in my essence, and in fact, I wrote my graduate school application to social work school way before Listen to Your Mother about listening. It was about listening. That came out of a chapter of professional burnout. Even though I was originally an actor, I was originally a stage actor. That's how I met my husband at a summer stock theater in the Rocky Mountains. And then I fell into television advertising. I was really good at it and it was really making me miserable. And it was like my first lesson. And you can be really good at something and it can be bad for you. So, coming out of that season of my life, I was really burnt out. I had had a miscarriage. So, it was one of my first experiences with loss, like profound loss. And I volunteered at the Council for the Jewish Elderly, and I just served snack. I wasn't in any sort of professional role. And the elders would tell me their stories. Some of them were Holocaust survivors. We all have a story to tell. And I was so moved by the power of simply listening. So that's sort of those seeds were the early seeds of listening and storytelling. Fast forward, like I became a mother. It was a dream come true, and also biggest challenge, of course, that I could have ever imagined. I found catharsis in, I called myself eventually a humor blogger, like making light of the incredible stress of mothering while my husband was traveling through the work week. And I found myself at a blogging conference, Blog Her, in 2009. And they had what they called a community keynote event where bloggers, many of whom wouldn't even call themselves a writer, many of whom had never been on stage or were terrified of being on stage, simply read their words at a podium. And in the audience, I was so moved as a person with social work background, again, by that profound witnessing of other people's stories, giving voice to story, bearing witness to story. As a theater person, I was really shocked at how moving this event was of just regular people reading at a podium with no set, no costumes, no actors. And then as a writer myself, having become a writer, I was just wowed by that event. And then it was 2010, just a year later. You can see how, like, my social work background, my theater background, even my advertising sort of marketing mind all came together. It was maybe in February of 2010. As I was a writer, I loved, like David Sedaris, I loved the idea of reading my own writing. Then I saw it at Blog Her on this community keynote, and all these pieces came together. And I thought of, oh, Mother's Day. Mother's Day deserves more than brunch. I want a community celebration of motherhood. And that's the genesis of Listen to Your Mother. And then because I was a blogger, the way it spread like wildfire is all because of that.
Yeah, the early blogging community, I mean, that is very intrinsic in, I think, a lot of people's success with social media. They were the ones who did it. They were the
Yes.
ones, the first ones on Twitter. I started my
Yep.
Twitter account. We all were anonymous back in the day.
Yeah.
It was like Musings 2011,
Yeah.
and then
And just
later.
like banter and fun. It was banter and fun. It was community. It was supporting each other, leaving comments on each other's blogs. There was a million different reasons to blog, but for you and for me and the people in our peer group, it was all about the love of writing and storytelling. And we learned so much. I mean, I developed a whole freelance writing career at that time because of blogging. And so many opportunities came out of blogging and Listen to Your Mother in that real spirit of like flying by the seat of your pants and figuring it out, right? Like we figured out technology, we figured out how to build, community. So many opportunities came from that time.
It's so interesting because of Listen to Your Mother, I became relevant again.
Mm,
Because of Listen to Your Mother being in the inaugural New York performance, and
yes,
I
yes.
do remember you being there. I was a little intimidated by you, but I remember you being there. And then understanding about like the connection to blog her and the connections to blogging. And I
Yeah.
remember I said to people, what is everyone doing? They're talking about blogging. And they're like, oh, yeah, we write down our experiences of motherhood and our days and what we're doing. And I said, oh, wonderful. How much should they pay? Like, oh, no, no, they don't pay anything. And I'm like, they don't pay anything? And they're like, no, but like maybe when you get bigger, you can get like opportunities from
Yes,
brands. I'm like, oh, that's so
yes.
interesting. I said, well, what do you have to do this? You have to have a website. You have to have a blog. I remember staying up till 3 in the morning. This was all because of Listen to Your Mother and like crying because I couldn't figure out how to set up this website on WordPress.org. I picked .org because they said you can't monetize on
Mm,
.com, and I did my
mm.
research. And then I started, and I called it Musings on Motherhood and Midlife. And I actually got help with the title when I was at Blog Her. I was going to have it Musings on Motherhood and Midlife and Other Forms of Madness. And then they said, no, no, it's too long. Take out Another Forms of Madness.
I got
And
so lucky around that because mine was ansrants.com and A being the top of people's what they would call the blog roll. So people would list blogs that they liked on the side of their site. And because mine was an A,
yes.
totally by accident, because it's my name, it would be on top of the blog roll alphabetically.
That's amazing. I remember the amount of stress involved later, reading the blog comments. It was like, oh God, it was like time to make the donuts. It's 5 in the morning, time to do the blog comments. I mean, there were people who were getting VAs to do it for them. No, no, I did it all myself. That was, I mean, decade before Substack
Yes.
or Medium or anything. But oh my gosh, what a community. I mean, I
Yes.
felt I found my people, even though I was probably older than the cohort of people. I felt I found my people. We
Yeah.
all shared this community of motherhood through Listen to Your Mother. Not that everyone at Blog Her was mothers. And it just became, I don't know, it was nourishment. I felt like it was nourishment.
Oh, that's such a beautiful way of putting it. And everyone has a mother or someone who took on that role. So the project really did leave room for everyone. And there's still a YouTube channel with over 2,000 videos, and you can look at those playlists and see fathers, grandparents, any topic of motherhood under the sun, from infertility to adoption to single parenting to divorce to LGBTQ families to like, I mean, literally it was such a teacher for me early on, listening to people's stories. And another theme that I love about early blogging and early Listen to Your Mother is how the story inside of us fueled us to do things we never consider doing, never thought we could do. For some people, they were terrified of public speaking, but they so badly needed or wanted to tell that story that they did it anyway. And same with this story, like learning and all this technology we never would have done in these precious few minutes we had while the kid was watching a video or whatever. It was such a time of learning and nourishment in that way, as well as the interpersonal.
But it became a movement. It was the in thing to do. Like, I became cool because I was in the New York, the New York inaugural performance of Listen to Your Mother. But more than that, it was state by state by state. How did
Yeah.
that happen?
It all happened through blogging because I put the first show up in its entirety on Vimeo. You know, at the time we were doing this, 5 minutes was like the recommended, length that people could tolerate with their attention span. Now it's 30 seconds. But even then, some of these videos were closer to 10 minutes. But the original, I put the whole show, the 90-minute show up on Vimeo. And then because I was blogging about it, people were curious. They started watching it and saying, I want to do this. I want to do this in my hometown. And then from that moment, for the next 7 years, I used to describe it like my torso was running in front of my body and I was sprinting to catch up. I had an incredible team of people helping me. Deb Rogers, who went by Deb on the Rocks at the time, she was
Mm.
already doing work pairing bloggers and brands. She loved the project and I can help you do this. I can help you fund this. And then started to basically build a national team with Melissa Wells and Stephanie Wilson and Taya Dunn Johnson. And then we created a whole manual to give people for how they could do this show. So there was an application process. We really tried to be mindful of creating something that we could sustain, that could translate to other people, letting people do the show locally while honoring the national brand and tenant. So it was a very complex, moving, constant innovation, constantly pivoting and changing. And, I think at one time we had 41 cities doing the show one Mother's Day. And in
Wow.
2017, we folded up the original project, and then people still do the show through Miracle or Two licensing company. And I think to date we've been in almost 70 cities, not at one time, but like throughout the course of the 15 years. We just celebrated our 15 years. The heart of the show, even though it includes some incredible people, really it was like your friends and neighbors. And it was really empowering so that everybody understood that anyone can do this. And what ended up happening is really Listen to Your Mother became a women's leadership incubator. People ended up re-careering, running for office, writing books, creating their own organizations. I mean, it has been way beyond anything any of us involved could have ever imagined in the best way.
You know what? After that, I got involved with, or maybe it was around the same time, I got involved with Mothers and More. It's a now deceased
Yes.
organization, and I was doing things for that because it spurred me on to really care about how to treat mothers and how society treats mothers.
And it wasn't an accident because every single show chose a nonprofit partner that supported women and families in need and not only donated a percentage of their proceeds, but also raised awareness and funds for that nonprofit. So that spirit was baked in intentionally from day one.
I'm just so thrilled that you have now moved forward in a way that's supporting your growth. And I want to talk a little bit. You said you felt like you were running ahead of yourself. You probably got fame very quickly in our community.
I definitely had that parade. I mean, I was all over the news media. There was a book. There was a big book launch in New York. There was a lot really quickly. And it was exciting. And also, I couldn't even begin to digest it. And it's funny because you talk about how you felt like a has been before you were in Listen to Your Mother, and it reconnected you to your purpose. And what's funny with me is I like to joke that when I started Listen to Your Mother, it was Mother's Day deserves more than brunch in 2010. By the time 2016, 2017 came around, I was like, you know what? I would really love to just have brunch. Like
I
my
love
life had gotten so big, it was so beautiful. And I was really feeling a pull to just get back to myself, my own life, my family, my growing children. Also, the business of Listen to Your Mother, we had no business growing from year one from a business perspective. This project was running on love. And I knew people would say, like, why did you leave at the peak of its fame? And I said, because I knew we were running on love and those fumes were evaporating. And I wish, how wonderful it would have been if we were making enough money to pay everyone. That was never happening from day one. So, yes, I burned out and I folded it down before that happened, but I had some real patterns established in my brain. So this is where I get into the brain stuff. I'm a positive psychology life coach. It's all informed by neuroscience and I love it. And basically what I help especially burned out midlife women do is disrupt the part of our brain, the left brain, where it makes life's challenges so much more challenging and reconnect, strengthen the right part of our brain where all the good stuff lives: calm, creativity, intuition, laser focus. And we need the left brain, that emergency brain, 0.0001% of the time. If it's not an emergency, it gets in our way. And it reacts from a place of early childhood where we were figuring out the world and figuring out how to fit in. And my story around that was I came from a very chaotic family of divorce and remarriage and co-custody. I got a ton of love. There was a lot of fighting. And I figured out really quickly I'm going to get along with everyone. And I love to perform. And guess what? When I performed, my family came together. So I was wired really early for achievement. And I developed this pattern of looking for my validation from an audience, from performing, from goal attainment. And we all have some version of the I'll be happy when. For some of us, it's our physical body. For some of us, it's material things. And listen, life has its ups and downs. But all the research shows we come back to this baseline and we can actually meaningfully raise that well-being baseline. And that's what I do for people. So Listen to Your Mother was part of a series of me constantly chasing the next bigger, higher goal, not being able to really absorb when I would reach that goal. And it was actually stealing from my ability to enjoy my life. So after Listen to Your Mother, and I'm recovering from burnout, and it's the pandemic, and everyone's reevaluating. My agent had my novel out to publishers during the pandemic. It didn't sell. It was just one more straw of like, you know what, Estelle, if it had sold, I would just be right off to the races with the next one. It was an unfillable well. And it was
Yes.
actually affecting my work and my relationships and my ability to enjoy life. And thankfully, I found positive psychology at that time, became a coach, became the therapist I intended to become, not as a therapist, but as a coach. And so today I'm doing what I love, helping people better enjoy their life through disrupting these old patterns and literally building their right brain through a specific program called Positive Intelligence.
I also love that you experienced what you are now helping people with, or part
Yes.
of what you're helping people with,
Yes.
because that gives you that knowledge, that ownership that you could really say, I've been there
Yes.
and here's what I can do. And I'm totally, admittedly, bitten by the ambition bug. I just can't stop. You
I
know,
know.
I don't want to stop.
That's the difference, though. Ambition is a beautiful thing. Okay. So that in itself is not a problem if it's not a problem for you. So the way we describe this work is we have these shining strengths underneath this saboteur. So you might have a strength of achievement without a saboteur of hyperachievement. And the hyper part is significant because what that means is that impatient, never ending to the next thing. So it just prevented me from actually experiencing the thing I was always chasing. And it became just this, like I said, this unfillable well. So for you, and we had a fun breakthrough session. Like it didn't seem to me like ambition is a problem for you. It seems like it's you and your strengths and it's fueling your well-being. And that's a beautiful thing.
My students say to me, we love that you're ambitious because you're ambitious for us, like you
Yes.
take what you're doing and you bring it to us. So it's like I'm continuously growing.
Appreciation of, well, love of learning and appreciation of beauty and excellence, curiosity. I can see so many of those strengths in you. Growth mindset, what that really means is wanting to learn and do something because it's hard.
Oh,
Growth mindset isn't just staying open to learning, it's wanting to do the work of learning because it's hard, because that's really good for your brain. So that's a super interesting topic. And I want to circle back a minute because I have changed my life and changed my brain. And I say this literally, they have MRI imaging of people before they've done this positive intelligence work and after, and it changes the gray matter in the right side of your brain. So because no, I haven't had my brain image, but because I've seen the changes in my own life and within myself, I am stepping back into my ambition, but it's coming from a totally different place. It's not coming from fear and stress. It's coming from my strengths and ease and flow. And it feels so good. And like, listen to your mother's 15th anniversary. Like, there are people who I've, met in the past 5 years who have no idea about listen to your mother. I didn't even mention it because I became so compartmentalized about, and now I'm coaching, right? And so this shift now, I'm opening my arms back wide to listen. Yes, I named my coaching business Listen Life Coaching, but it was really a name. I hadn't done anything. So I'm really starting to think about like you said, pulling all this through and forward. And it feels wonderful and ambitious, but from a different place in me.
I feel like I know you a lot better now than I did
Yeah.
10 years ago, right? Or whatever that time period was from Listen to Your Mother. And there's more of a gravitas to you today. So I think that's part of what you were connected to, the high flying thing. And I could see that. Like when I was younger, maybe I was ambitious and I didn't have the weight of my experience behind it, but I was still ambitious. But then
Yes.
as you get more and more and more behind you, for me anyway,
Yes.
that
The experience
support.
piece. Yes.
It's like you can't just say, oh, she's ambitious. You have to say, oh, but she's doing this and the other, and she's done
Yes.
that, and she helps people do it. So
Yes.
now it's grounded in something,
Yes.
not just this brittle. I think I used to be, when I was younger, and that's something I'm exploring, I used to be more brittle because
Hmm.
people didn't know where this big energy was coming from. So I either shut it down to protect myself or having an impromptu session here. But no, like we did. And Anne had given me like a little coaching session just because she wanted to show me what she's doing now to
Yeah.
have me be able to explain it to you. And as she's explaining it to you, but I think it's just so helpful to know how she operates, which is so wonderful. And I think you could help so many people because there are just so many women that if they're in midlife, they don't even understand what's going on. Their kids
Yeah.
outgrowing them, their kids' family becomes less important than friends or relationships. And so they're like, I put all my energy into my kids, I put all my energy into my career. What am I doing?
Who even am I anymore? Like people will come to me and they're like, I've lost my spark. I don't know who I am anymore. For some people, they are working, but they feel a lot of women hold on to their jobs like long marriages. I see clients who've been in their job for 10 years, 20 years. You don't see that as much with men, I don't think.
Yeah.
And the loyalty piece, you definitely don't, where they're, staying in something that they've outgrown and that they're loyal to, that's not necessarily loyal to them back in the same way. And coaching really helps you. We go through this 7-week program. It's built for busy people and it's literally taking your brain to the gym. It's the coolest thing.
I love that. Well, I'm going to include all of that in the show
Yeah.
notes so
Yeah.
that people can reach out and all that.
Absolutely.
And I love that you've been melding everything because that's the whole of you,
Yeah.
that makes you who you are. And I also wanted to say that when I was in Listen to Your Mother, my director was Amy Wilson, who's been on the program, and she has
Yes.
like Happy to Help now, and she has her own podcast, which is wonderful. And Wendy Aarons, who's a former blogging superstar and a wonderful humor writer. was on my program. And so like kind of all the
And Nina Babs. I mean, there's so many, we have so many people in common who were all connected to listen to your mother.
Alexandra Rosas, who
Yeah.
is a friend, and I saw her at Irma Bombeck. And I
And
mean,
she did her own show in Milwaukee after
yes,
being in the Madison show. So that would happen too, is people would be in a show near their community and then say, oh, and now I'm going to do my own show within my community. It was such a neat thing.
that is fantastic. And so you're also doing a little side project these days,
Yes.
and it's a podcast, and it's called, it's pronounced Memoir, Memwah.
MEMWAH.
And that's with Wendy Aarons and Mariana Olenko.
Yes.
And you focus on celebrities, right?
It's a celebrity memoir podcast, not the first, but it was Mariana's idea. And she just thought I would really like to do this from the Gen X perspective. And it was such an automatic yes for me, which is funny because I've been approached to do a lot of podcasts. Let's like listen to your mother and why don't you do a podcast? And I've never wanted to before, even though that's an obvious fit. But Mariana asking me and Wendy at the same time, it was such an easy yes because I knew this is going to be my regular scheduled fun. These were two of my first blogging idols turned friends. They're hilarious mom blogs, made me laugh so hard, challenged me to improve my own writing and humor writing ambitions, and they just became great friends. And it's not just funny. These memoirs have brought up a lot of very current topics, a lot of women's issues that I don't think we anticipate. Like almost every single one includes an abortion story, lots of survival stories. And so we have really meaningful conversations and also make each other laugh. And it's just really fun.
Yeah, it's fun, it's funny, and it's like sitting with three friends. It's really entertaining. So, what do you want people to most be thinking about, connected to all your work so far and the work upcoming?
It's such a stressful time to be a human, to be a parent, no matter how old your kids are. You know, the political landscape, it feels very chaotic and stressful. And I just want everyone to know, don't let this time rob your joy. This is the only life that you have. As like pat of an answer as that may be, it's also the truth, and that there is something you can do, that you can grow the side of your brain that will help you disrupt from this constant stress and fear and anxiety to really be able to better enjoy your one life. That's really what I want people to know. And yes, sharing your story, writing your story, there's so many ways to do that, whether it's just in a journal, whether it's, you know, you go to a local storytelling event. Really, I want people to allow themselves to do things just for practice or the fun of it. Letting go of trying to be quote unquote good at something is one of the most freeing things you can do, to just allow yourself to play and explore, which as adults, it's really hard for us to do and to find. Whether you just take a dance class, do something just for fun and allow yourself to be terrible at it. This is a really important time to find something you can do to practice fun or a little bit more levity.
I agree. And this has just been so amazing. I love being connected with you. I love what you're doing. I have that book, by the way. It's on my
Thank you.
bookshelf.
I'm still thinking about some of your writing advice about just saying things as succinctly and powerfully as possible. It's such good writing advice and advice for life, even like conversations you have to have with your teenager or your young adult is still good advice. And I love how you wrapped it up with being vulnerable, because you know what? Vulnerability is how we connect. I
Yes.
say that like perfection is the enemy of connection. When we're vulnerable and flawed, that is how we connect as humans. And that's, you did that so beautifully in your TED
And
talk.
it's about listening, right?
And it's
Because it's right. So just
absolutely about
circling
listening.
back there.
Yes. Yes.
No, I love that. And oh gosh, this is just so great. And I'm going to share all your info. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was wonderful.
Follow me at estelleserasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.